Welcome back. Four-star General Stanley McChrystal spent 4 decades in the military, eventually leading the U.S. efforts against al-Qaeda in Iraq and then the joint coalition forces in Afghanistan. He resigned in 2010 and has since spent time as professor, consultant, and author. His latest book is called On Character. It features his reflections on what it takes to possess character. I sat down with him this afternoon as he visited Chicago's University Club, and here is some of that conversation.
The goal of this book is to start a national conversation on character. And what I mean by that is I think we're arguing about policies and politics and personalities. We're giving our votes and our social media likes and our money to people that don't show much character. And if we took that back, not at the high level, at the local, in families, churches, schools, teams, groups like this, and we just said, okay, we're going to hold ourselves to a higher level of character, starting with ourselves, but then as collective, we'd have a different country. And I think that we've just gotten embarrassed to talk about it, or too lazy to talk about it. They're not sure what it is.
It almost seems like a lack of character is beneficial in the social media world or in the pundit world. And you're speaking my language here, because when folks come up to me and say, well, the media is this and the media is that, and all journalists are biased, and my response to them is, well, what story did you dislike? And almost 90% of the time, they don't have a specific story.
That's right.
It's just, this is what they've come to accept without really thinking too hard about it. So this discussion around character, because there is a chapter on the book on the word character, what it is and what it isn't. Yeah. And the fact that it's not always good and not always bad. So what is character and what is it not?
And that's a great question, because I don't think any of us have the same definition of character. And that's a problem, because you throw the term out, and if you're not talking about the same thing, it's hard to really go further. So I have offered a definition of it. The first thing is, I think character is the essence of who we are. It's reflected in what we do, not in what we claim. The essence is what our actual behaviors are, our actions. I put together a mathematical equation as my definition, because I was trained as an engineer, so why wouldn't you, right? And what I think it is, your character is a product of two things. It's your convictions. Now, these are the things that you believe deeply, not the little things superficially you believe, but the things you've thought about, the things you have probed yourself on, the things you've questioned. They're your deeply held values. You're willing to live to them or die for them. And the other part of it is the discipline you have to live to them. And because it's that way, if you've got the best convictions in the world, but you lack the discipline to live to them, you have zero character. Because anything times zero is zero. And how often do we find that we have this idea of what we want our character to be, but then when we actually execute, we disappoint ourselves, because our discipline's just not there to be what we want it to be. And I think that's true, again, at the organizational and a national level. You know, Thomas Paine, the pamphleteer, said, character is what men think of us. Our reputation is what men think of us. Character is what gods and angels know of us. So it's really the heart of who we are. And if we would imagine this, what if we started holding people to account on character? What if we had a presidential debate, you know, the kind they put on TV, and the first question is, okay, candidate X, describe your character and tell us, support that with evidence. You have 10 minutes. Candidate Y, you can't say a word. And if a person can't talk for 10 minutes about their character, that's an indicator. Because right now we reward sort of glib, quick responses. But if somebody can't make a case for this is my character, then how should we put our trust in them?
I do want to ask you about Afghanistan, because you reflected the book, quote, the essential question is whether we should have gone into Afghanistan in the first place. This seems like a very fraught question and potentially scary answer for someone who led the joint forces in Afghanistan for a short period of time. And then when you look at the withdrawal, when you look at the way that war ended, how does a service member, how does a general grapple with a question like that and an outcome like that when you've lost your friends, you've lost your colleagues, and you're giving your life for this cause? Yeah,
when you've commanded people that those commands caused them to die. So how do you feel about it? You know, I've obviously, like every soldier, I've spent an incredible amount of time talking about it. Afghanistan did not turn out like we wanted it to. I don't think we were wrong to try. I actually don't think in the aftermath of 9/11 there was much choice. There was a sense we had to go do something. I think we could have done it differently and we could have done it better, absolutely. But it was not a bunch of knuckleheads over there trying to screw it up who didn't know what they were doing. Everyone I ran into, with few exceptions, were good people working hard, trying to do the right thing. Now, that should give us pause. The reason it should is because if I said, no, General X screwed it up, or the troops sucked, or something like that, you could say, okay, that's all right, we failed. That's not why we failed. We failed for more complicated reasons. We couldn't get our national policy aligned across the government. We couldn't do those things to make mass governance work. We couldn't get our allies to do as much as they needed to do, the Afghans in this case, and then, of course, our other allies. So the real problem, in my estimation, is more complicated. And if we're ever going to do another endeavor like that, we ought to step back and we ought to admit how hard it is. Go back to Vietnam, go back to previous efforts like that, and respect the problem. You know, respect what it would take to succeed on a mission like that. Now, do I think we should have? I grew to love the Afghan people, so I do. I think they let themselves down. I didn't think they did near as well as they could have, particularly in getting their governance tightened up. But the reality is, it's hard not to love them when you're up close to them and you're fighting alongside them. But we just...
That's some of our conversation with General Stanley McChrystal, and that's all our time tonight. As always, keep up with all the news you need to know at fox32chicago.com. We'll be back here tomorrow night. Good night, everybody.